Are you calling the truth garbage, Mr. Speaker? With those 7 words, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett didn't just silence the most powerful man in Congress. She exposed a $93 million corruption scheme that would shatter his career and ignite a national reckoning. The room froze. For the first time in his political life, Speaker Mike Johnson had no words, no deflection, no army of staffers to save him. Just the cold, hard evidence staring back at him from the screen. And a woman he'd tried to humiliate moments earlier, now holding the receipts of his downfall. But to understand how this political assassination happened in broad daylight, how a congresswoman they tried to silence ended up bringing down the Speaker of the House, we need to rewind to the moment she walked into that hearing room. If you believe corruption should be exposed no matter how powerful the perpetrator, hit that like button right now and subscribe. Because what you're about to witness is a masterclass in political justice that the mainstream media doesn't want you to see. The establishment thought they could bury this story, but today we're bringing you the unfiltered truth about how one woman with a folder took down the most powerful man in Congress. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the political elite fears outsiders who come armed with facts instead of favors. This isn't just another political scandal. It's a blueprint for how everyday Americans can reclaim their government from corrupt insiders who think they're untouchable. So buckle up, because this takedown is about to change everything you thought you knew about power in Washington. The hearing room was packed wall to wall when Jasmine Crockett entered through the side door. No one stood. No hand was extended. She was directed to the last chair at the far end of the table, a seat so distant from the central microphone, it felt more like exile than assignment. Even her nameplate was wrong, 1 letter off. In Washington, details matter, and this wasn't a mistake. It was a message. Across from her, Republican staffers chuckled just loud enough for the audio to catch it, but soft enough to deny later. The laugh wasn't about a joke. It was about power. This was Mike Johnson's domain, and everyone knew it. When the speaker entered, the room erupted in applause, a coronation disguised as courtesy. His suit was perfect, his stride almost theatrical, a politician who'd spent years rehearsing the look of legitimacy. He didn't even glance at Crockett. He didn't have to. The room did that for him. "This is my chamber. You're lucky they let you sit." As the clapping subsided, the chairman turned to Jasmine. "You may proceed, Congresswoman Crockett." She leaned in, eyes calm, voice steady. "Mr. Chairman, regarding the review of Section 4, that was as far as she got. Bang! Johnson's gavel hit the desk, not to restore order, but to send a message. "Hold it," he said sharply. "Before the gentlewoman from Texas gives us another TikTok moment, let's remember this is a hearing, not a content farm." The Republican side chuckled in unison. Rehearsed, coordinated, cutting. Johnson smirked. "We're here to discuss appropriations, not hashtags. What we need are lawmakers who understand the federal ledger, not influencers playing dress-up with budget binders." If you're already feeling your blood boil at this blatant disrespect, drop a like right now. This is exactly how the establishment treats outsiders who dare to question their power. The political elites have been using these same tactics for decades. Belittle, dismiss, and dehumanize anyone who threatens their control. But what Johnson didn't realize was that he wasn't dealing with just another freshman representative. He was about to face someone who had come prepared for exactly this kind of treatment. Someone who understood that in Washington, arrogance is often the precursor to a catastrophic fall. And as you'll see in just a moment, Jasmine Crockett was about to turn this carefully orchestrated humiliation into the biggest mistake of Mike Johnson's political career. Johnson didn't use her name. He didn't have to. What he said next landed like a slap wrapped in silk. "Some of us built careers on governance, others on viral theatrics." The room was no longer a hearing. It was a setup, a trap, and Jasmine Crockett had been cast as the spectacle. But she didn't react, not with anger, not with defense. She simply watched him, her eyes never blinking, never straying, like she was calculating something, measuring something, waiting. And for a split second, just one, Johnson's smirk faltered. He thought he'd silenced her, but what he mistook for silence was precision. She wasn't there to win the room. She was there to rearrange it. And inside the thin folder in front of her, something waited. Not a retort, not a soundbite, a detonation. Johnson didn't stop. He leaned back in his chair like a professor addressing a student he didn't think belonged in the class. The gentlewoman, he said, drawing out the word as if it didn't quite fit her, might consider reading the appendix before referencing it again. This isn't a place for grandstanding. It's a budget hearing. Laughter rippled again. Not loud, but intentional. She may be popular online, he added with a shrug, but here we're dealing with real policy, not Instagram captions. He gestured toward her folder with a smirk. Not everything can be solved with filters and catchphrases. It wasn't about disagreement. It was dismissal. It was designed to make her smaller, to turn her presence into a punchline. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The words did the work. But Jasmine didn't flinch, didn't blink. She didn't check her notes, didn't fire back. She simply listened, like someone memorizing the way an opponent moved before delivering the knockout. What looked like silence was strategy. Her hands remained still, but her eyes, they didn't drift. They locked on Johnson's face, calm and unyielding, not with rage, with record. Because while he spoke to cameras, she was speaking to something else, something deeper. The room might not have known it yet, but Jasmine Crockett had come prepared, and every word he threw at her, she filed away, not as insult, but as evidence. The mockery wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of his unraveling. Stay with me, because if you think powerful men can humiliate women without consequences, you're about to witness one of the most savage takedowns in congressional history. And if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or talked down to by someone who thought their power made them untouchable, what happens next will feel like justice served on a silver platter. Make sure you're subscribed because this is the moment everything changes, not just for Mike Johnson and Jasmine Crockett, but for how power works in the halls of Congress. The tension in that room was building toward an explosion that would reshape American politics. And you're about to see exactly how it happened. Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She reached forward slowly, deliberately, and tapped the folder they had all mocked just minutes earlier. 2 fingers, 2 taps, and the screen at the front of the chamber came to life. No monologue, no drama, just rows of cold clinical numbers glowing under the congressional seal. This, she said, voice low but crystal clear, is a certified audit from the Office of the Inspector General. The room stilled. It outlines over $93 million in expedited infrastructure funds routed through Section 17B. But here's what's unusual. She clicked. 3 company names appeared. No public websites, no visible operations. Each had received a single federal payment. And each company, Jasmine continued, shares something else, or should I say someone else. A 4-screen loaded Grant Holland, political consultant, longtime strategist, and personal friend to Speaker Mike Johnson, in every company, either CEO or majority shareholder. And the timing? She asked, letting the silence thicken. 10 days. That's how long it took for each payment to land after meetings with the Speaker's office. She didn't look at him. Not yet. Another click. One final document filled the screen. Letterhead from the Speaker's office. Single paragraph, short, direct, signed, "Proceed immediately. Do not delay with formal review." Gasps. This wasn't speculation. This wasn't a theory. This was a blueprint. Signed, dated, ordered. And suddenly, the table turned. Because Jasmine Crockett hadn't just come with questions. She came with answers they couldn't escape. If you're shocked by how blatant this corruption is, hit that like button right now. The American people deserve to know what's happening with their tax dollars. This is exactly why trust in government is at an all-time low. Because while politicians lecture us about fiscal responsibility, they're funneling millions to their friends through shell companies. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't just exposing corruption. She was demonstrating a masterclass in preparation. She didn't come to grandstand. She came to present irrefutable evidence. And the beauty of her approach was its simplicity. No theatrics, no raised voice, Just the cold, hard facts that Johnson couldn't deny. The power dynamic in the room was shifting with each new slide. The same Republicans who had been laughing minutes earlier were now shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Journalists who had come expecting routine budget discussions were now frantically typing on their phones. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was a public execution of a carefully constructed political image. And Jasmine Crockett was just getting started. The folder was damning, but what came next was irreversible. Jasmine didn't gloat. She didn't move from her seat. She simply reached down and pressed a small black button beside her mic. The overhead screen shifted. The data disappeared. In its place, a pulsing waveform on a black screen. No intro, no names, just quiet static. Then a voice, familiar, calm, unmistakable. They don't read the appendix. That's the point. We just bury it in line items. No one asks, no one notices. Gasps echoed across the room. Some looked around, hoping someone would deny it. No one did. The voice continued. Americans are too busy worrying about gas prices and loans to care where a few million go. We slide it through. Always have. Jasmine didn't flinch. Her hands rested calmly on the table. She didn't need to explain what they were hearing, because everyone already knew. This wasn't a theory. It wasn't an accusation. It was a confession. From the man still sitting at the head of the table, now frozen in place. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. And for the first time all day, Mike Johnson wasn't holding the room. He was buried beneath it. Because the voice wasn't Jasmine's, it was his. And no amount of power could silence a playback. The audio had landed like a missile, but Jasmine wasn't finished. She didn't need outrage. She brought receipts with timestamps. She opened a second folder, clipped, and read 4 printed emails marked confidential internal routing. Each slid onto the screen, one after another. Email 1, subject, vendor diversion confirmation. Keep external message. Move total via grants vehicle. Avoid naming until Q3. Use legacy pack format if questioned. The room tightened. Lawmakers shifted. Staffers stopped typing. Email 2. Coordinate shell invoices with Holland before disclosure deadline. Confirm Johnson's sign-off. Jasmine paused, let the words speak. She didn't narrate. She let the ink do that. Email 3. A flowchart. Budget lines sliced into thirds. Caption. Split into 3 firms to avoid thresholds. Rotate signatories. And then came email 4. Short, unambiguous. Speaker approved. Proceeds same structure as February. She looked up. This, she said plainly, is not miscommunication. It's choreography. The gasps were quieter now, not from surprise but from realization. They weren't hearing a theory. They were watching a map of deception, and the man who approved every step was still sitting at the head of the room. But now no one was looking at him for leadership. They were looking at him like evidence. Because this wasn't a paperwork error, it was a plan. And Jasmine Crockett had just made it public. If you're as stunned as everyone in that room was, smash that like button and subscribe. This is the kind of political accountability we need more of in America. What makes this exposure so devastating isn't just the corruption itself, it's the calculated nature of it. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment or a single questionable decision. This was a systematic operation designed to funnel taxpayer money to friends while deliberately avoiding oversight. The emails revealed a level of premeditation that couldn't be explained away as a misunderstanding. And perhaps most damning of all was the casual nature of the communications. This wasn't their first time. This was business as usual, a well-oiled machine of corruption that had been operating in plain sight, protected by the very power structures that were supposed to prevent it. And now, thanks to one congresswoman who refused to be intimidated, the entire scheme was exposed for all to see. The documents were still glowing on the screen, but Mike Johnson was unraveling in real time. He slammed his hand on the desk. The sound cracked through the chamber like thunder. Then came the shouting. "You're disgracing this institution," he barked, finger pointed straight at Jasmine. "This isn't oversight, it's sabotage, a stunt, a political ambush." The volume rose, the mask dropped. "You are a danger to this chamber, Congresswoman, a danger to truth." But he didn't get to finish because Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, calm as ever, and asked one simple question. "Mr. Speaker, are you calling the truth garbage?" Her voice didn't rise. Her tone didn't shift, but the words struck like a blade, clean, surgical. Johnson froze. For the first time all day, he had nothing. No rebuttal, no deflection, no applause to hide behind, just silence. The kind that doesn't feel quiet. It feels heavy, because that one sentence, it was more than a question. It was a mirror, and Mike Johnson couldn't look into it. His jaw tightened, but no sound came. The Speaker of the House, the man who opened with insults, wielded titles like shields, and tried to bury a congresswoman under protocol, was now drowning in his own silence. And Jasmine, she didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just waited. Because some collapses don't start with explosions. They start with a man running out of lies. The room had frozen, but one man was still breathing differently. From the far left bench, Representative Caleb Rose stood. No gestures, no hesitation, just presence. Known for his independence, a man who rarely spoke unless the moment demanded it. And this moment did. He didn't look to his colleagues. He didn't ask permission. He looked straight ahead and spoke. "Mr. Chairman," he said calmly, voice like a gavel falling through silence, "I am formally calling for an immediate ethics investigation into the conduct of Speaker Mike Johnson." Gasps, pens dropped, phones raised. The chamber didn't stir. It snapped. It wasn't just what he said. It was who said it. Not a partisan rival, not a firebrand, but a man known for restraint. This moment right here is why you need to subscribe to our channel. Because we're showing you the raw, unfiltered truth about how power works in Washington and how it can be challenged when someone comes prepared with facts instead of fear. Johnson's meltdown wasn't just a loss of composure. It was the desperate reaction of a man who suddenly realized he had no escape. The same tactics that had worked for him countless times before, intimidation, dismissal, ridicule, were now completely useless against the hard evidence staring him in the face. His anger wasn't righteous indignation, it was panic. And Jasmine Crockett's calm response, that simple question about truth, was the perfect contrast to his unraveling. It highlighted exactly what this confrontation was really about. Not a battle of personalities or politics, but a fundamental question of integrity versus corruption. Up in the press gallery, the dam broke. Click, click, click. Headlines began writing themselves mid-air. Eric's Speaker exposed trended within minutes. And outside the Capitol, the story hit the streets. Not with outrage, with clarity. Teachers, veterans, nurses, students. They gathered not in protest, but in purpose. Some held signs quoting Jasmine, word for word. "Truth is not garbage." Cable news split to live feeds. Anchors leaned in. Editorial boards scrambled to issue statements. It wasn't just a call for accountability anymore. It was a national reckoning. And in that moment, it became clear. Jasmine Crockett hadn't just silenced power. She had woken the people it tried to ignore. If this story of accountability inspires you, hit that subscribe button now. We need more people willing to stand up to corruption, no matter which party is responsible. What made this moment so powerful wasn't just what happened inside that hearing room. It was how quickly it resonated with ordinary Americans across the country. People who had grown cynical about politics suddenly saw something different. Not the usual partisan bickering, but a clear case of right versus wrong. The evidence was so overwhelming, so undeniable, that it cut through the usual political noise. Conservative outlets that would normally defend Republican leadership were left struggling to find an angle. Liberal commentators who might typically overplay partisan advantage instead focused on the methodical presentation of facts. For once, the story wasn't about left versus right. It was about truth versus deception. Social media exploded with clips of the exchange, each one garnering millions of views within hours. Political analysts who had dismissed Crockett as a social media congresswoman were now praising her methodical approach and unflappable demeanor. Former prosecutors appeared on news programs to explain the potential legal implications of what had been revealed. Government ethics experts called it one of the clearest cases of corruption they had ever witnessed in real time. And through it all, the public response was unified in a way rarely seen in modern politics. This wasn't acceptable, no matter your political affiliation. The story transcended partisan divisions because it touched on something more fundamental: the basic expectation that public servants shouldn't use their positions to enrich their friends. She could have run to the cameras. She didn't. She could have claimed victory. She didn't. Jasmine Crockett walked out of that hearing room the same way she walked in, with calm, with focus, and without a script. Reporters flooded the hallway. Television producers called nonstop. 3 major networks offered her primetime interviews that same night. She declined them all, not because she was avoiding the spotlight, but because she knew what that hearing was really about. "I didn't come here to be famous," she told her staff quietly. "I came here to work. No podium, no performative tweets, no brand rollout." Instead, Jasmine headed straight back to her office, sleeves still rolled, folder still in hand. By the time her name hit the top of trending searches in America, she was already drafting oversight legislation. And that's why the country listened. Because while the headlines shouted her name, she whispered something louder: discipline. She didn't turn her moment into a movement. The people did. Artists began sketching her in grayscale, standing tall beside burning gavels and broken red tape. Professors replayed her cross-examination in classrooms. Veterans said she reminded them of real leadership, the kind that doesn't talk over others. It outlasts them. She didn't roar. She didn't demand applause. She didn't ask for power. She earned it. And in a world addicted to noise, her silence became a symbol, not of absence, but of control. Jasmine Crockett didn't ask to be a symbol. She didn't come to perform. She came prepared. No entourage, no slogan, just a folder and the truth. And that somehow was revolutionary. She didn't explode. She didn't beg for airtime. She simply walked into a rigged room and refused to play by its rules. Not with volume, with evidence. Not with applause, with discipline. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the bar. And in doing so, she gave the rest of us something we haven't had in far too long: a reason to believe that integrity still matters. Because what Jasmine proved inside that hearing wasn't just that power can be confronted, it's that power collapses when you shine enough light on it. This is why you need to subscribe to our channel right now, because we're committed to shining that light, to exposing corruption wherever it exists, regardless of party or position. What happened in that hearing room wasn't just a political moment. It was a template for how accountability should work in a functioning democracy. In the days that followed, the impact of Crockett's evidence continued to reverberate through Washington. Ethics committees convened emergency sessions. The Justice Department announced a preliminary investigation. Political donors began distancing themselves from Johnson, with several major contributors publicly demanding answers. What was most remarkable wasn't just the immediate fallout, but how Crockett's approach changed the conversation about political accountability. Instead of the usual partisan finger-pointing, people were discussing the importance of evidence-based oversight. Instead of focusing on personalities, the conversation centered on processes: how to strengthen transparency, how to close loopholes that allow corruption to flourish, how to protect whistleblowers who come forward with evidence of wrongdoing. But here's the truth. This moment cannot belong to her alone. It belongs to all of us who watched, who nodded, who whispered, "Finally." Because if one woman can sit at the edge of a table, misspelled name, broken mic, and still flip the entire room, then we can't afford to keep sitting down, hoping someone else will do it again. If this video has inspired you to demand more accountability from your elected officials, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with everyone who needs to see what real leadership looks like. Jasmine didn't need to be loud. She needed to be clear. And now that she has been, the next move is ours. Write, call, organize. Ask your representatives where they were when the speaker went silent. Support ethics reform, not just when it's trending, but when it's buried under amendments. Tell your kids about the day someone proved silence can be more powerful than shouting. Because democracy doesn't survive on heroes. It survives on action. And the most dangerous thing we can do is forget what we saw. So don't forget. Don't let this become just another clip. Don't scroll past it like it didn't happen. Stand, speak, push. Because Jasmine Crockett stood up and the country followed. Now it's your turn. The power of what happened in that hearing room isn't just about exposing one corrupt politician. It's about reminding all of us that the institutions we depend on are only as strong as the people willing to defend them. It's about understanding that accountability isn't partisan. It's patriotic. And perhaps most importantly, it's about recognizing that in a democracy, the most powerful weapon isn't money or influence, or even a gavel. It's the truth, backed by evidence, delivered with conviction. That's what Jasmine Crockett showed us. That's what changed everything. And that's why this story matters far beyond the walls of Congress. Because in that moment, she didn't just expose a corrupt speaker, she reminded America what courage looks like. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. This channel is dedicated to bringing you the stories the mainstream media won't touch. The raw, unfiltered truth about power and accountability in America. And if you know someone who needs to see this video, share it now. Because the more people who understand how corruption works, the harder it becomes for the corrupt to hide. This is just the beginning. Stay with us.